So from this slide, we are trying to learn a default interface methods. Up till now, we understood that in interface, we can keep the declaration of variable and methods. The variables are public static final and methods are public abstract method. But we can keep only the declaration of methods. The implementation of these methods will be given by the implemented class or child class which we are implementing the interface. So this part is clear to everyone. But here, before Java 8, interface could have only abstract method. The implementation of these methods has to be provided in a separate class. So if a new method is to be added in an interface, then its implementation code has to be provided in the class implementing the same interface. So from this para, we come to know that in interface, if afterwards we are adding one new method, then it's a responsibility of the child class that has to give the implementation of that newly added method, even though that class is not required it. So this is an issue. To solve that issue or to overcome that issue, Java 8 has introduced the concept of default method, which will allow the interface to have methods with implementation without affecting the classes that implement the interface. Means that if we are implementing or we are giving a definition of a method inside an interface, then that method should be a default method. In short, I can say that in interface we can keep definition of method also, but that method should be a default method. So default concept comes in a picture. So due to this, means by putting default method definition in an interface, it is not mandatory for a child class to utilize or to implement or to give a definition of that method. It depends on requirement. If child class required, then it can utilize it, but no need to give the definition of that method. Default methods are also known as defender methods or virtual extension methods. Now, let's take an example on it. Here, drawable is our interface. In this interface, we declare one method draw. By default, this method is a public abstract. Along with that, we keep one more method that is message but with a definition, and this message method should be a default method. So this is one interface. Now we have another class rectangle. This rectangle class implement drawable interface. So it's the responsibility of rectangle class to give the definition of this method. So here we are giving the definition of draw method. Now in a test class, test interface default class, inside main method, we create an object of rectangle class and reference of interface. So d.draw will go here and process this method. But I want to utilize this method also. And rectangle class is not implemented here. So how can we use it? We can use it on the d dot message. So d is a reference of interface. That's why it is capable to call this message method. So d dot message, so it will go in an interface and process it, and it will give the or will serve the requirement. So this is an example for default. Now let's take an example of static method. We know that in an interface, if we keep static method, then what will happen? Here, one example, drawable is one interface having one draw declaration of draw method, then one method that is cube and it is a static method. If it is static methods, it means it is visible and accessible throughout the program. It's just like a global variable. This is rectangle class which implement drawable interface. So it's responsible to give the definition of draw method. It's giving the definition. Now this is the test interface. Inside this, test interface class. Inside this class, inside main method, I am creating an object of rectangle class with the reference of interface. So d.draw, if I am calling, then it will go here and process it. But I want to call this cube method of interface d. So generally, if method of a class is a static method, then it's a thumb rule that we to call that static method we never use object. To call or to invoke static method of a class we use class name or interface name. So here to execute this method we use class name or interface name. So interface is also one class, so we can write here interface name dot q. In this way, we can execute or we can access static method of an interface of a class. I hope you understood this.